today is Mohammed Albakri. He's our Senior Vice President of Financial Settlement and Distribution Services. And Mohammed will give a brief presentation, and then we'll have time for your questions. So with that, I'm happy to hand it over.
Thank you, Barry. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us today. Last December, some of you might recall that I had introduced the case for change, which is really meant to support the airlines to better focus on customer centricity and the value creation. And of course, this is what we call the modern airline retailing. It's a program that has a lot of aspects and a lot of components in it. Hopefully, I'll be able to go through some of it and simplify it, so we'll try to understand it better. So, airlines and their value chain partners really need to break away from decades-old legacy of standards that IATA had built with the industry, business processes and legacy technologies around the sales and distribution. Sales and distribution, of course, for the airline products that are being done through third parties channels. This can only be happening with 100% movement towards 100% offers and orders. And we will talk more about what does that really mean. So, retailing with offers and delivering with orders. We start with making the offers, and we deliver on the promise to the consumer, to the travelers through orders. In a world of offers, it is powered by the new distribution capability, technical standard, better known as NDC. The airlines creates the offer rather than having it assembled by somebody else, normally by global distribution systems. In the world of orders, built upon the one order standard, airlines and passengers no longer have e-tickets, PNRs, or electronic miscellaneous documents. So all those will be superseded, and those will become under one order to record, track, and manage that purchase. Instead, they have this one order so they can deal with one rather than having many. So where are we today? We talk more about offers and orders, and you probably have seen these headlines in the news, and more keeps coming almost every day. And so the traction is happening. As well as we can see, with more and more news as we hear about the airlines really taking the journey. So, retailing with offers, as you see on the screen, what really the airline has been enabled and are actually doing it. They're delivering, value creation. They're delivering more values to customers, such as much more granular price buckets than what we have in the legacy systems. In the legacy systems, we all know that we have about 26 price points, that's it, where under the NDC standards, airlines could have as many as 100 different continuous pricing points that will offer, of course, much more flexibility to airlines and to the consumers. At the same time, also in the world of offers, it offers the travel agencies greater access to airlines ancillaries, very much like the airlines offer on their websites. So the same content will be available, to agencies and agents around the world. However, now to achieve this, we really need to move the industry to 100% capability of offers and orders. Break away with the legacy of the standards, the processes, and the technologies. Leading airlines has started the journey. However, they are stuck and they are being challenged with having to manage, the offer, but they're also having to deal with e-tickets, EMDs, and PNRs. So it's very much like trying to take the content from a fiber optic cable and try to force it into a coaxial cable. It really is not working, and it's making life much more difficult for everybody. And this is where the one order standard comes in. So when you shop with Amazon, for instance, you have one single record, with what you have ordered and what you have paid. You can add, you can subtract, you can change, whatever it is, only with that one order, as simple as that. This cannot happen with the world of PNRs, e-tickets, and AMDs, where you have to deal with multiple records, multiple numbers, and of course things get much more complicated when disruptions happen, either voluntarily or involuntarily, and you have to deal with all these things. Of course, airlines are trying to do their best to deal with this, but they can't really do it on their own. Individual airlines can't do it on their own, and as such, also last year, we announced the IATA consortium for airlines members. The whole concept behind it is we grouped together these 12 airlines who were, nominated themselves to be part of this consortium as early adopters to work together with IATA to accelerate the journey, to accelerate the identification of the technical standards and the pathways to move from the current legacy way of doing business into the world of offers and orders. Now, the consortiums, of course, they have plans and they have roadmaps and they have commitments to the Board of Governance of what they need to do during this year. They have already delivered 2 and they're working on the remaining 3 of their deliverables. They have published the business capabilities, and that is referred to as the standard reference architecture, which really describes all the business capabilities in a world of offers and orders, of how we need to move from the passenger services system, PSS, into the main components of offer management and order management. So that has been already published. They have already managed to also publish a business case for the change, which are being used in the industry. And before year end, they will publish the transition pathways from the current to the to-be environment. It's all happening within this consortium. Now, when we talk about value creation and customer centricity, there are a lot of meanings behind it and a lot of technical details, but I'd like to summarize just some of them, for you. So it's the reduction of the distribution cost, of course, that is very obvious. Increased revenues, for the airlines. McKinsey studies have shown that, up to 4%. Opportunities for greater agility in payments, giving, agility and flexibility to consumers and travelers to pay as they wish and to pay using whatever payment method that they'd like. Of course, increased Net Promoter Score, satisfaction, and much better, greater satisfaction from the airline staff and the supply chain staff using and working with much more modern technology than the technology of the 1960s. Thank you very much. I think we can open it for questions.
Great. Okay, we'll now have time for your questions. Robbie?
Well, I do. A question I would ask is the challenges that that agents talk about with servicing their NDC orders. Would that be resolved if we with one order as opposed to the 3 different documents, or would that help resolve those servicing challenges that seem to be really frustrating travel agents?
I think it will, and it's a very good question. Thank you for asking it. And we have just released a paper about 3 weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken, that really looked into trying to understand what are the pain points that the agencies are referring to when they say servicing difficulties. So we have identified certain categories, and we have identified the solutions to those categories of pain points. It is available on the IATA website, by the way, and we will continue to work with our technology providers and the airlines, and of course the standard setting groups, really to further analyze and to see what are these pain points and how could they overcome. One of the main challenges that we have had is, although the standards are there, the implementation could be different. And that's where the differences are really happening, and that's where the gaps are happening. What we're trying to do is we're trying to bring everybody to adapt the standard as similarly as possible to move away from creating these gaps. But I would really refer you to that paper, please, and the IATA website, and we can share it, with everybody to address the servicing issue.
Okay, when you say the implementation, do you mean the implementation of the offers or the implementation of the servicing? And is the problem not adhering to the standards, is that from the airlines or is that from the GDSs?
It's the way it's implemented. The standard is the standard, of course, and we do not enforce how the standards are really implemented. Certain technology providers, they take the standard and they implement it from a technical point of view in their own way. So certain airlines, because they need to connect it to various other processes and systems, they might, add to the industry standard certain other components and certain other processes that will really dilute the initial intention of the standard. And this is what we're trying to do with our member airlines and our strategic technology partners, is to remain as much aligned as possible.
So if they stick to the standard, it'd be easier.
We really need to stick to the standard as much as possible, and not to take the standard and then dilute it by creating, a different implementation schema, so to speak.
What airlines have done that?
Without naming names, but of course, what we can do is we can show the standard, we can publish the standard, and adapters, they really need to understand, because these standards will continue to evolve. They're not going to stay still, so we'll continue to publish upgrades and updates to these standards. So the more they stick to the basic standard, the better ability they will be able to interact with everybody and then take advantage of the upgrades and the new releases of the standard.
Other questions? Oh, I'm sorry, I should have asked earlier. If you could also identify yourself.
Good. Des Latham from Mrs. Day, Johannesburg, South Africa. I'm interested in that list. I know we've been through this, Mr. Albakri, and it's nice to see you in person after a couple of years of Zooms. But no African airlines really. I see obviously a couple of Middle Eastern airlines there that service my part of the continent. But what's the plan when it comes to dragging some of the airlines from my continent into this training project?
They're more than welcome, to be honest with you. We stuck to this number, 12 airlines, because it's easier to manage that, that number, but it doesn't mean that we will not be able to bring in more airlines as we expand the work. I believe within the coming months, 2024, after this particular consortium members finish the delivery of their commitments, I think we will expand the number of airlines. But everything this consortium is building and publishing is available to all our members. It's available to the entire industry. It's all public records. This is part of the terms of reference of this consortium. None of it is proprietary. It's all available for everybody to benefit from.
Another question? Questions? Guess we've answered everyone's question. One thing I wanted to, Mohammed talked about on this, but I don't know if everyone's clear in the room. When we talk about the ability to only offer 26 price points, basically in the current system, which is based on EDIFACT technology from the 1960s and 70s, in which the offer, the ticket price, the fare, and the schedule come together from outside the airline. The numbers of the letters of the alphabet determine how many different price points you can offer. With you moving into an NDC offer environment, you greatly expand that ability, the ability to offer what's called continuous pricing. So that whereas in the past, because you only have 26 points, by nature they have to be further apart. Maybe they're $25, $50, $100 apart, because you've got a finite number. When you move into the NDC environment, you can really get down into $5 differences, $10 differences. And so it becomes possible to generally speaking, passengers can wind up finding more fare possibilities than would otherwise exist. So it's one of the important things, and we know, for example, one airline I think is offering, I won't identify it, but offering something like 75 to 80 price points on some of its routes, which again is a great advantage for the consumer because of the greater opportunity to find that fare that's going to work for them.
And it's all dynamically done, so it's not like in the legacy world where it's pre-published. This continuous pricing is actually dynamic, where the airlines are actually continuously updating these, price points, depending on the situation and depending on the demands and depending on everything that's going on. So that gives a lot more flexibility to consumers to choose from and pick, the price points and everything else that goes with it.
And if there are no more questions with that, I'll thank everyone for joining us.